And folks, the thing about this book is, in this interview, we can't emphasize enough, to underscore how their techniques were. You got to read the book to find out some of the things that they were doing to Casey and some of the kids. Now, I'm not what you call a real hard ass disciplinarian, but and I understand that it's not an easy job to have these type of kids, to rehabilitate them or get them through school, make them productive again. But folks, this went way, way over the line with the way they abused these kids. I mean, now we're talking major league mental and physical abuse. And Casey, let me do this just to not to bring back a horrible memory. Let's add this to the stage
Oh, yeah.
here. There's a face you might remember, and he pops up. He pops up in the book. What a handsome guy.
Yeah, he was a monster. This
Paul
guy,
Gear?
Paul Gear.
Paul
Yeah.
Gear. Tell me about him.
He was the leader of Family One, which was the family that I was in when I first got there. Now, I'd just like to say, not all of the staff members were monsters. Like there were some people, some really good people that worked there. There were some really horrible people that worked there. Paul was probably the worst. Really creepy guy. He would do things that, you know, I knew at the time were insane, and I like you almost couldn't believe they were happening. He had a thing where he'd come up and sniff us, and he'd go, and he'd look around and he'd go, "I smell dishonesty." And then he'd start hitting you with questions. Like if he focused in on you, it was really predatory. And say, "All right, so what are you holding in?" And you'd have to give him something. And it was, I'd say something like, I was walking around with my shirt untucked the other day. And he'd go, "No, that's not it." And it's like, I didn't study for my history exam. No, that's not it. And really the question that he always had, which was, it was absurd. It was always, when was the last time that you masturbated? That was we all knew that was the question he wanted answered. And that's what he wanted to know. And he wanted to know that a lot. So I knew that and he was unique in that, right? He was like the only one that was openly asking that question all the time. And he had a dorm underneath of his in his basement. So, we had a feeling that there were a couple people he was abusing there, but you could never say. There was no, like I said, there was no complaints department. So he always seemed like he was always a creep to me. When this guy walked in a room, you could feel things change. It was like, everybody's talking and the record scratches, and like this guy walks in, and then the conversations would get sort of muted. And you just always hope to stay out of his way. Luckily I wasn't got by him. He hated me, and he let me know. Like at one point he said, "I loathe you," just kind of out of nowhere. Because I was able to get out of his family. I was transferred to another family, and this guy was like kind of sadistic, where he'd say, "Oh, I wish you were still in my family because you wouldn't be skating by if you were." And he really loved to punish people. His big thing was, obviously aside from the molestation, was talking to children about sex, and often about masturbating, sexual fantasies. He was there, he said, because he was a sex addict, and he would tell this disgusting story about how his low was when he was eating a cheeseburger and masturbating in his car. And he would tell us this frequently. So this is a guy, like, I think at the time was in his 30s, and he's talking to kids as young as 12. I think I believe he was like an equal opportunity molester. I think he was molesting girls and boys. Like he was just he was a monster.
And this article here, this piece of the article I got posted with his pictures. This was March of 2025 when I think it is, right?
Yeah,
When
this
the
was
law caught
recently
up
that he
with them.
went
We're
away.
talking about, we're in April now. This was recent stuff in March of this year when this so-and-so got arrested and convicted, I think it is. I didn't
Yeah,
read all of it
yeah,
there, but
he was charged, and hopefully he'll be in jail for the rest of his life.
oh,
I think
geez, yeah.
I had a couple classmates that I talked to that went up for the trial, so it was.
Okay.
I mean, it was kind of amazing to hear that something was actually going to be done